Hey guys, welcome to CraterMania. I'm your host, the man they call Crater, and I want to welcome you all to How I Got Into Wrestling, the show where we learn about how wrestling fans from all over the world give their perspective of how they got into wrestling. Now, on today's show, we have a very special guest. If you follow this man's YouTube channel, or if you watch Dead Pit's Friday Night Lives, then you'll know this man needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. You see, when this man isn't making videos on his channel or with Uncle Bill and Rambo Raff, or purchasing multiple couches or cigarettes for questionable coworkers, or even those cool ass German physical media releases. He's a huge fan of wrestling, and he's also one of my fellow WrestleManiacs over on the Dead Pit channel. And I'm really excited to have him here on the show. So now, entering the CraterMania arena.
I'm a stuntman, motherfucker, stuntman, motherfucker, stuntman. I'm the man with the cash, I'm a stuntman, motherfucker, stuntman, motherfucker, stuntman. Back the fuck up before I smoke your ass, dog, motherfucker, stuntman.
Hell of an intro.
Stuntman Marq.
Thank you for having me, man. It's great to be here. That was a hell of an intro.
Great to have you. Oh, thanks, man. Like, yeah, Wes sent that to me. He's like, you gotta put Mark's interest theme on there. I was like, oh yeah, for sure. So, and it's funny because, like, I had other people like Foz Rot, and he was on Facebook saying, he's like, you gotta use Mark's theme. I was like, oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, man, it's great to have you, and thank you for doing this. Thank you for taking time to do this, man. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, anytime, man. I'll be back as much as you'll have me.
Well, man, before we get into the main part of the show, just tell everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do on your YouTube channel and stuff.
So I am Stuntman Marq. I am 1/3 of the Friday Night Live stream over on the Dead Pit radio channel. I also do a stream with this fine young man right here, Crater, on Dead Pit as well, called WrestleManiacs, along with Garrett and CK. And on my channel, Stuntman Marq, I showcase collectibles, a lot of the stuff that you see right back there. I showcase all that stuff. Anything that I get in new, I try to post content about that. And yeah, man, I'm just another wrestling fan that doubles as a horror-loving physical media nerd, man. I love it all.
And don't you think that that's so strange that there are like so many people in this world that has all those common interests: horror, wrestling, physical media. It's really, strange in a way, but like it's super cool though, I think. But I guess we'd go ahead and jump right into this, Marq. So how did you get into wrestling, man?
So one of my earliest memories of watching wrestling was I was a really, really young kid, and it was something that my grandfather always had on. And probably at the time, I was probably a little too young to understand what I was watching. But I mean, I just kind of grew up in a household where wrestling was commonplace. My grandmother and my grandfather, to be exact, they both watched wrestling all the time. Hell, even my mother is a wrestling fan. Not as much anymore, but hell, she went to Starrcade 87. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm so jealous. I wish I was alive at that time to go and participate in one of those old school Starrcades. But she's told me tons of stories about like heckling Arn and like seeing the main events with Luger and all those guys. So it was just something that's always been around, for me. And by the time that I did get of age to appreciate it and really understand it and get into it, it just never left. Like I was all in, man.
Yeah, and I think that's how it is for a lot of us. I know it is for me, personally. Like that's as soon as I got into it, and really loved it, and just learning different wrestlers, different promotions, just different things I would learn in the like Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazines and stuff like that. It never really died for me either. It's been this constant thing. It's like I don't know about you, but like I've never fell out of wrestling at any point, since I've been a fan.
Same. Yeah, I mean, there was at least one point where I was a little in and out, but my love for it never went away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like I said, it's a constant, and it never will go away. I mean, if I do have kids at some point, I'm gonna pass it on to them too.
I try to. I tried to with my son. He's just not having it. He's not into wrestling at
Really?
all. No, man. But my nephew, my little nephew, is for sure. So, like,
That's cool.
I at least have that to share with him.
Hmm.
Yeah, I've tried. I took my son to a few events. Like, we took him to a house show years back in Corbin, Kentucky, where it was when the Fiend was the Universal Champion at the time,
Okay.
and like the main event was the Fiend versus the Miz for the title, and so I tried to take him to that, and he seemed like he enjoyed it somewhat, but he was really scared of the Fiend because he was really little at the time when we took for that, but over time I've showed him stuff and he just, yeah, that's cool, but just really never got into it. I mean, maybe later. I mean, he's still young, so he could
Hmm.
definitely, find a love for it later on, but like it's nothing I'm gonna force on him or anything.
Yeah.
Um, but so when you first got into wrestling, man, who was the first wrestler that you had became a fan of?
You know, that's kind of a tough question, just because it was so much of a promotion hopping thing that my grandparents did. I don't know if I really gravitated to one specific person,
Mhm.
but I would probably say Taker, maybe.
Okay. What
Um,
what what year was this?
this would have been like very, very early 90s. So like 91, 92, somewhere around there.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, so I'm sure this is probably a obvious answer that you're going to give, but what about Undertaker appealed to you so much?
Just the character. I mean, even back then, I always liked horror stuff. It definitely creeped me out more back then. But yeah, just the whole presentation of the character, Paul Bearer as well, who's a legend. Um, yeah, just that gimmick, man. And like you were saying, for your like how the Fiend was for your kid, like it's you got the creepy vibes from it, and
Yeah,
he just stood out in a way that nobody else did. So
and that's the thing too. Like that's why I got into Undertaker because I had like that horror, fan in me as well, even at that young age. And my son is starting to kind of get into horror now. He never really was before, but he is kind of now. So maybe like he can go back and say, "Hey, I remember seeing that guy, the Fiend." When I
yeah,
was little, and maybe it might kind of draw him into it, but I don't know, man. But yeah, I was the same thing with Undertaker when I was a kid. I was already, kind of into horror and stuff. So seeing this character just that embodied that of the whole horror vibe was super cool, and I think he was like the only one really at the time too, right?
yeah, I want to say he was, because I mean there was a couple other gimmicks that were dark, but nothing quite like that. I mean, the music, like I said, the whole presentation. Obviously, his size, he's so physically imposing, just as a wrestler himself. Like how do you not pay attention like when he comes into the arena or gets in the
Right.
ring?
Yeah. And you said that when you were getting into it as a kid, like you said, your pretty much your whole family was into it, like your grandparents, your mom, all that. Did they have any personal favorites at that time when, like, around the time that you were beginning to watch it?
Um, no, not really. I could say, at least like for my grandfather, he was definitely a big Hogan fan around
Mhm.
that time. But yeah, as far as like the main ones, Hogan, Flair, definitely the Horsemen. Um, there's probably a couple other that I can't remember, but yeah, he's no longer with us. He's since passed on, but he left an impression on me. That's for sure. Like I
That's
said,
awesome.
it's such a big part of my life. Like I couldn't imagine not watching wrestling. So much so that there's even been points where I'll just get into it so much that like the entire week, movies, TV shows, or anything, I'm just watching wrestling the whole week, back to back.
So
So
that seems to be like a common thing with a lot of people of how they got into wrestling is that they had like a family member or a friend or something like that that was into it and it got them into it. Um, do you think if your family had never been into wrestling, do you think you would have became a fan anyway at some point?
I think so, just because of the showmanship, the athleticism, of course, the storylines, and you also, because you have to remember, because I was coming up during the '90s, that
Hmm.
was the boom period for the
Oh
Attitude
yeah.
Era. So I would have gotten sucked in anyway. I mean, everybody at school, even some of the teachers I remember would talk about wrestling. So it was bound to reel me in one way or another.
Yeah, that's exactly how I think that's another thing that's really cool and strange at the same time is that that was kind of the whole thing all across the country in schools, like, especially during the Attitude Era. Like it was, there was people like myself, and I had some friends that were already wrestling fans, but when the Attitude Era, that whole boom kind of came into the fold, these people that weren't like wrestling fans that probably never watched it, a time in their life, it just started watching it and just became fans because just that it was really something that was kind of taken over, just not just in wrestling, but just in pop culture in general.
Mhm.
Um, so, um, Going back though to when you got into it, so you said Taker was one like the first guy you became a fan of, or at least one of the first guys. Who was some other people that stood out to you at that time, when you were becoming a fan?
You know what's funny? I kind of want to laugh about this now, but I don't know why I was such a mark for Boss Man in the early '90s. I mean, he's a great worker. Don't get me wrong.
Mhm.
Ray Traylor, great wrestler, very underappreciated and underrated, I think, in the eyes of the IWC, at least these days. He
Mhm.
doesn't get talked about and brought up enough. But yeah, definitely Boss Man, dude. Like something about like the cop gimmick. I just thought that was the coolest thing back then. Like he can handcuff you to the rope. Like that's amazing.
Yeah, and what's funny is that when I started watching Boss Man when he was just, in the probably early '90s when I first started seeing him, I liked him, but I wasn't a huge fan. But I ended up becoming a huge fan of him during the Attitude Era. And to this day, I'll say that he's one of like the meanest, like most evil heels of all
Hmm.
time, just because of he turned Al Snow's dog into food, like for Al Snow, made him eat it. I mean, he like grave robbed Big Show's dad's casket, attached it
Yeah.
to his car, and just took off with it. Stole his daddy's watch, and then smashed it with a hammer. I mean, dude was a real son of a bitch in the Attitude Era, and I just there's something so
What a
entertaining about that to me.
I agree. But what a great progression for his character to grow into. I mean, what's the next like logical thing beyond being a cop? Oh, be a SWAT team guy. It's like, but it worked, and I think initially, like when he came into WWF with that version of the gimmick, after he leaves WCW, isn't he like McMahon's like head of security or something like
Yeah,
that?
something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And I think that's where I really truly became a huge fan of him. Even though I did like his little kind of short stint there. Well, I wouldn't call it short, but like, when he was in WCW, and then like he went from being Big Bubba to like his real name, Ray Traylor, and he was like
Mhm.
teaming up with the Steiner brothers. Uh, I even thought that was pretty cool. But like, I think I only cared about him then because he was associated with the Steiner brothers, and I really liked the Steiners at that
Me too.
time. So, like, I think that was probably the best thing they could have done for him, because if they hadn't paired him up with anyone, I don't think they would have been enough attention on him. You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
if you think about everybody that was in WCW at that time, like this is like 96, 97, most importantly, the NWO. I mean, it's hard to take, and put the attention on so many guys. And I think that's why Glacier failed.
I mean, do you think he would have ever worked, at least in the long term?
I mean, not within that era, but
Mhm.
maybe like in the early '90s, he would have been a cool character to have for
Yeah, I
that
could
kind
see
of
that.
what they were doing in WCW at the time. But I mean, when they were kind of pushing into this more edgy stuff, the NWO, that's all everybody cared about, was just the NWO,
Yeah.
Sting, the Horsemen, the main guys. I mean, it was hard to really put a focus on everyone in WCW at the time. The cruiserweights, I think, got lucky
Mhm.
because they were just different from anything else in WCW. So I think that there was as much of a focus on them at some points as there was with like the top stories in WCW. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, every time WCW came on, there in the mid '90s, I was looking for the NWO. Like, I wanted to see what they would do, which is weird for me to even say because while I did like Hall and Nash, I was never really a big Hogan guy. At least the
Right.
red and yellow babyface Hogan. Um, but I always got his appeal and like how big he was and everything. But he flips and turns to the black and white NWO, and I'm like, oh, he's the coolest now. So yeah, it was pretty chaotic there for a while in WCW with all the NWO stuff that was going on. But I mean, hell, man, I compare a lot of the stuff from back at that time to what they're doing today, and I'm always going to be not only nostalgic for that time, but just the way wrestling was back in the '90s. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like the work rate, even the guys in WWF at the time too, the work rate that they had, just the way they worked. Um, I mean, I could also say that a lot of the guys of today definitely are. I mean, hell, look at Finn Balor and guys like that. They're amazing body, great shape. They can work for sure, but it's just a style in a bygone era that I just miss, and I wish that was still around now.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same as you do about that, man. And like, I gotta ask, so how old were you at the time when the NWO first came around?
Oh, geez, let me see. I would have been. Let me see, because that would have been like 96, 97. So I was
Mhm.
probably about 10.
Okay,
About
so
10.
we were probably around the same age then.
Mhm.
So, like, when the NWO first came around, were you like an instant fan, or did it take you a while to
I
kind of
loved
like?
it as soon as I saw it. As soon as I saw it, I was like, "This is great!" Just because the sheer amount of chaos that they kept up on a nightly basis, I just couldn't get enough of it. But I definitely love the cruiserweights too. I was
Oh
locked
yeah,
in on the cruiserweights.
and it's funny how like pe- people perceive things differently when it comes to that. Like, so when the NWO first came around, like this is when I said I was about the same age as you, I was 10 years old, and I hated heels. I hated
Really? Okay.
any of the bad guys because just like this is still at a time where I didn't understand that this was just a show. This was scripted. I thought these guys really hated each other. I thought they were trying to like beat the shit out of each other on a weekly basis. And
A
um
little bit of that got spoiled for me. Only because my mother told me it was a work. Like even back
mm,
then, she would explain to me how it all happened. So I was kind of an early smart fan. I mean, not to where like, I could figure out angles and finishes and stuff like that, but at least to know that like, hey, these are people playing a character on TV.
mhm.
So
Well, see, I was told that same stuff by my brother and my dad, but
mhm.
they were always all the time trying to mess with me. So I thought they were lying, and I refused to believe it. And I was like, "No, this is real. No, this they and like all the bad guys, all the heels, I hated them for the longest time. But then, like when I got in, I was about maybe 13 or something. I started kind of learn more about the business and just how it actually worked. And I was like, oh, okay. But it didn't make me feel any differently because I just seen it as I do nowadays. It's a show like any other TV show or movie or something. It's a form of entertainment to me, and to
Mhm.
me, it's one of the most unique forms of entertainment there's ever been.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I wasn't an NWO fan there for a good while. When they like branched off and they were doing like the Wolfpack thing, I kind of liked that. But even though I felt weird about it because like Sting, was like for 2 years was fighting against the NWO and then he becomes
Yeah.
a member himself.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, man. But
Loved Crow Sting growing up. That's one I
oh, yeah.
kind of forgot about. Yeah. Obviously the whole dark Crow gimmick. I love that. I was still am a huge fan of that film. Love the Crow.
Oh, me too,
Um,
man.
so yeah, that was there's just a natural fit for me. Like seeing him in the rafters, and it was. kind of funny. Just the entire NWO is afraid of Sting. I mean, you think about that, like it's a little ridiculous, but it worked, man. It was entertaining.
But I mean, that was just the whole. It was almost identical to how it worked, like in the Crow, because you had Top Dollar and his
Mm-hmm.
his crew, and that was just like they were all fighting against Eric Draven, and it's the same
Same
concept.
thing.
And what's funny is like Sting has even said like in a previous interview, but like he said something completely different in another interview too. But like, but what he was saying was that the idea didn't come from the Crow, and I'm like, yeah, it
Hmm.
did. Yeah, of course
That's
it did.
pretty weird. I always thought it did. What did he
And
say it came
well,
from?
well, I can't. I have to find that interview and I'll send it to you. But like he says that it was just something cool that they were experimenting at the time. It had nothing to do with the Crow, the inspiration that come. But then in a completely separate interview, he says different. He says it is based off the Crow, and he says that Scott Hall was the one that came up with the idea and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't know what he was thinking that day in that one particular interview, but I'll find it and I'll send it to you. I was like, what is he talking about? But when you were first, so you like the Undertaker, you like Boss Man, and all those guys like that. Were there any memorable matches or moments that stick out to you from that time you first got into it?
No, not in particular. At least not at the time. Of course, going back and having been grown up since then, like seeing a lot of that older stuff just to refresh my memory.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a few angles here and there, but nothing that stood out back then. It's so weird, like how it's a lot of it is a blur, at least until like I get to the later part of the Attitude Era, because I'm a little bit older. Obviously, my memory's a lot better at that point, but yeah, it's kind of weird just looking back on all that stuff now, and um, mostly because of the way everybody treats the Attitude Era. I don't know if you've noticed that, like it's kind of become a thing in the last few years for people to hate on it and say, "Oh,
Yeah,
it wasn't
I
that
don't get
great."
that. I don't get
Yeah,
that at
that's
all.
so bizarre to me. I because being such a huge fan, I have a lot of those. I want to say, let me think. It's Raw 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001. I have all those
Mhm.
as well as the SmackDowns from that era on like actual discs.
Yeah, me
I
too.
found them online because I couldn't stand the edited network versions of them. Um, and WCW stuff as well. So I have like a lot of the raw unedited stuff. ECW too. I ended up finding that as well. And I'm looking at all that stuff and I'm like, this all works. Like, of course, there's some ridiculous stuff, but there's always ridiculous stuff in wrestling. There's always going to be something that doesn't work as well as it should. But to me, I think the storytelling was pretty solid. Of course, you got all your classic wrestlers in there and guys that can work their ass off for the most part. There's a few jabronis, but not too many. So, like, I don't get that. I mean, you've seen that, right? Though, like people saying
Yeah,
it's
plenty of times, man. And you would think most of it would come from like this newer generation of wrestling fans or
Mhm.
kids that are super young, maybe in high school or whatever. But no, I've seen people our age say the same thing as well, and it's shocking to me. I'm like, how? I mean, I understand everyone has different opinions. That's fine, but like when you say that the Attitude Era wasn't as great as everybody makes it out to be, or if it's overrated or what, I just I don't understand that because it was to me the best time that there ever was in wrestling.
Mhm. I agree. Yeah,
Um,
I mean, from the talent, the unpredictability of who's going to go to what promotion, hell, even all the great managers that were still like semi around. Some were fading away during that time, but you still had a lot of really cool ones. And I just, man, I miss. I'd give anything to have that time back for wrestling.
yeah, and I revisit a lot of those old Raws from the Attitude Era and the SmackDowns and all that, and even going back to watching like the Nitros and Thunders and stuff too. And you know, my wife will ask, she's like, "Why do you rewatch this stuff more than anything?" I said, "Well, because it's the fucking best that there ever was." And,
It's true. It really was, man. Because for a minute there, like I would see that kind of online reception about that time, and I'm like, is this more me like rose-colored glasses kind of thing? Like, so I went back and I watched all my stuff, and I'm like, they're wrong. Like, this is really good. Like,
Yeah.
but that stuff aside, though, do you have a favorite year or like promotion? Like, what's like your favorite thing from the Attitude Era?
Well, during that whole Monday Night War stuff, at the beginning of it, I was more partial to WCW. When it started with the whole NWO stuff, and then like that,
Mhm.
because Sting, and I'm kind of biased because Sting's my favorite wrestler of all time. So like I was
Okay.
really like zoned in on what they were doing with Sting. Like from the moment that fake Sting come out of that limo and attack Lex Luger. Like, even as a kid, I was like, that wasn't Sting. And then they were all saying, like, oh, and Tony Schiavone was like freaking out. It's like, well, Sting has betrayed us or whatever. And then, like, right after that, they had like the fall brawl. Then, like, the real Sting shows up in the War Games match. And then after that, it just starts developing more and more and more into the Crow Sting stuff, Sting versus NWO. Well, for a while, you wasn't really sure if it was Sting versus NWO. We wasn't sure if Sting was going to like join the NWO, but like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I always had that faith that Sting family was like, no, don't join the NWO. And then
Yeah.
but like that was like I love WCW, but like when it got into '98 after Austin won the title at WrestleMania, I started kind of shift over to WWF
Mhm.
because to me, like WCW was still doing good things at that time in '98, but like I was just more interested in like Stone Cold and The Rock, and you had the hardcore division was coming around that time, and just Kane had just came in like at late '97.
Yeah.
So to me, the origins of the Undertaker Kane storyline and how Paul Bearer was involved and all that, to me that was the best story that's ever been told in wrestling. Just I was so invested in that, when from the moment Kane came in, and then they finally had their match at WrestleMania 14. And I think that's really where it changed for me was with WrestleMania 14, because you had Austin taking the title, you had like Undertaker and Kane having their first match. There's the Road Warriors had just come back with Sonny as their manager,
Yeah.
LOD 2000. Cactus Jack, Terry Funk had the match against the Outlaws. I think it was like the dumpster match at 14. That was a fucking good WrestleMania, man. But yeah, I just kind of shifted from WCW WWF, like, midways through
Mhm.
the Monday Night War.
That's funny you say that because I was kind of that way as well. I remember vividly like room hopping because I would stay with my grandparents in the summer, and at that time they were straight up loved WCW to death, so they would watch that live. And in the other room, I'd have WWF on, so I just room hop. Like when one went on commercial, like I'd go back and forth to
Mhm.
either room, and they would tape Raw, so they would watch it the next day, and then I'd watch Raw again the next day with them. So that was such a fun time. It's bringing back all my memories now of that. uh, I don't think we could ever get to that place again, just because of
No.
how much the business has changed.
Well, just the world too has changed so much.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of things that happen in the Attitude Era that's just they've tried to erase, basically edit it out from the programming that you see on whether it be, well, I guess it's just on Netflix now, because it
mhm.
was on Peacock, but they took all of it off of Peacock. But they have edited so much, not just the music, but just like actual moments in wrestling, because it's deemed offensive or whatever to people now. Which I think a lot of, and I'll use this for example. DX as the Nation. I mean, I've heard from several guys. I've talked to Godfather himself. I'm like, were you offended by that when that happened? He's like, hell no. Everybody thought it was hilarious. And I
Myself
think
included.
and I think that's what the general like consensus is amongst a lot of fans. But I just think because of how the world is now, WWE seems obligated to have to do that. So, they won't have outside sources or people that aren't wrestling fans that will look at that and be like, oh, well, you see what WWE did, 30 years ago.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it's ridiculous.
Yeah. With the editing, especially for the music, like that rips so much of the heart and soul out of
Mhm.
especially ECW.
Oh
Like
yeah, definitely ECW.
watching like my own personal collection of ECW stuff versus what's on the network, it's like it's it's a straight disconnect. I can't even watch the network stuff.
I,
Well,
I mean,
it's
yeah,
ESPN, but
that the only time that I'll really watch, the old ECW stuff is if I watch my stuff that I already have on disc, because it's it's just not the same, man. It doesn't give that same feeling, that same vibe that when you watched
mhm.
it originally and you had, Tommy Dreamer coming out to Man in the Box by Alice in Chains,
Yeah,
Sandman coming out to Enter Sandman by Metallica, RVD coming out to Pantera's Walk.
right. Yeah.
It was just so there and there it was like that for pretty much every guy in that company had
Mhm.
like this copyrighted music, but Paul Heyman, just being Paul Heyman, didn't give a fuck. He's like, "Hey, let's do it anyway." And that's what I've always loved about Paul Heyman, because he has that don't give a shit attitude. He still does to this day. If
Mhm.
you look at stuff that he does behind the scenes and stuff, and I don't know, and that's what I want to ask you. What do you think? Have you watched WWE Unreal at all?
I do want to check out at least one episode. There's a part of me where I'm like, I don't really want to watch it, but I can't help but have that interest, at least on a technical level, just because I love the business so much that like there's a piece of me that I would like to see what they're doing with it. And maybe I might not mind it as much as I think I would, given the fact that I haven't seen it yet. So
Well, when you do, let me know what you think, man, because I wanted to hate that show so bad going into it, but
mhm.
I ended up really liking it. And just a lot of the stuff that they were kind of doing on those episodes of it was super intriguing to me. And I was like, my feelings changed on it. And I was like, I'm not stupid. I mean, like, I know how the business works. I know this is, but at least they're not like, covering these storylines that are currently ongoing on the product. These things that they're showing on these episodes are moments and matches that happened months and months ago.
Mhm.
So at least they're not like showing you in like real time, like, oh, this is what we're going to do, in this match you're going to watch next week on Raw. So I at least appreciate that. And just being the person I am that's just loves learning things about behind the scenes, and whether it be from like shoot interviews or whatever, it just I really kind of grew, this interest over, and like I pushed all the way through season one really quick because I think it's just like 6 episodes, and then like at the time when I watched it, season two was already out, so I was like, I gotta watch season two, and like there's a heavy focus in season two on Penta, and so where they got him as like the Intercontinental Champion now, I knew it's because I knew they're going to be doing a lot of cool stuff with him, and I'm glad to see it. How do you feel about Penta?
I'm glad he finally won the IC title. I thought for the longest time when he was in AEW, I figured like, it got to a certain point, like it does with a lot of different wrestlers that are there, and that have been there for a while. Like, where else do you take the wrestler? There's a glass ceiling, and
Mhm.
I'm like, he needs to leave. Him and Ray Phoenix. I just kept thinking that. I just, I'm so happy for him. He deserves it. He always works hard. Um, and I think he's going to be a big deal still. I mean, I know he
Oh
came
hell
in
yeah,
and
dude!
he's had a good run so far. I think I've seen a lot of people say, well, they're burying him. He hasn't gotten this, and he hasn't. But you don't want to give the guy everything right away. I think so many wrestling fans are so eager for this to happen right away or that to happen, and then if it doesn't, they're buried. And I'm like, that's not
Yeah,
really how that term works. But
yeah, and that's what I was going to say, man. Like I hate how so many fans nowadays loosely use that term, buried.
yeah,
I don't think that they fully understand what it means
Hmm.
because I mean, if you look at so many guys like back in especially during the Attitude Era, guys that lost matches, but they were still like seen as like top talent in the company.
Right.
They weren't getting buried. I mean, I mean, I don't get that, man. Like it's just it goes back to what we were talking about. The people talking down to the Attitude Era. It's just like people got some interesting, perceptions out there on things for sure.
Yeah, a lot like the Rollins thing that just happened on
Hmm.
Monday. Now, I mean, granted, it was a little silly. it,
Yeah, I
it,
was
it,
wanting to ask you about that.
it looked a little silly. I'm not gonna lie, but I'm I'm one of those people. I want to see where it's gonna go first. Um, you've only really officially had it for like 1 week. I
Mhm.
guess technically a couple weeks before that, if you count all the run-ins and stuff. But having them all there as a collective group, it could be really cool. I mean, I think there's. I'm not sure about the him getting lost in the shuffle. It looks like they're doing a funny dance.
Yeah, so someone in the comments on a post on Facebook said it looked like they were the Three Stooges, like dancing around, and I was
Yeah.
like, I definitely see that, like kind of like this like weird shuffle, and that's what when I was watching it, I was like, what are they doing right now? Like, I don't. Because
Yeah.
to be honest, personally, I'm sick of this masked man shit. If they're going to give Rollins a stable with some of these guys, I wish they would hurry up and do it. And just like because I don't want to see a bunch like 10 different masked guys running around with Rollins all the time.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a good point. Like it could go a lot of different ways, but I think one of the best case scenario ways it could go is in the end of it all, he unmasks and he's got because I think a lot of those guys are from his training school, right?
Yeah, yeah. From what I heard, yeah.
I'm hoping there's like some guy that we haven't really heard much about, obviously, because he's in the training school, but Seth sees something in him. And maybe he's a great worker and he's going to be a new wrestling prodigy. You never know. And maybe that's going to be the guy that Seth keeps out of the group of guys that he has. And he cuts a promo, says something like, I was trying to have a vision and it got screwed up along the way. My ego got in the way, but now I'm going to push my homegrown talent that I have. And it's going to be this guy. Not in so many words. He'll, have his own way he words it and everything. But yeah, just for right now, though, the way that it looks, I hope they lose the whole circle jerk thing. It just
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
really
strange
work.
because what was funny about it was when they were like leaving the ring last night and you see like someone were jumping over the barricade to go back into the crowd. There was one guy that was like huge, and then some people were saying that was Royce Keys, but I don't know if that's true or not. But like, but the guy was like objectively bigger than the rest of those guys in the group. I was like, well, that's clearly not Seth Rollins. Uh,
Right.
but I
Yeah.
mean, I respect the idea they're trying to go with that, and if what you're saying is true, that they do end up like pushing some of these guys that's from Rollins' own wrestling school, I would love to see that. But since we're talking about Rollins, what do you think they're going to do with him at Mania, man?
Oh, man, you really don't want to have him face Logan Paul again. From what I've heard, Braun Breaker will be ready in time. That's the
That's what I'm
obvious way to
thinking
go.
too. Yeah.
And I would think the perfect way to bring him back into the fold is everybody's having a hard time getting their hands on Rollins. Why doesn't Braun Breaker just show up as another masked guy with the hood on?
Oh, that's a
He's in the
great
group.
idea.
He waits for Seth to take his mask off, and then he just jumps him out of nowhere, attacks him, beats him down. Then he takes the mask off. He's going to get the pop, right?
That's a
So,
really good idea, man. I like that. I wouldn't mind that at all and then I don't think it's Logan Paul because if you look at it, they're also doing this thing the Usos and Logan Paul
mhm,
in theory as well.
mhm.
So that's why it made me think like, is Braun Breaker coming back? Is he going to be ready in time for Mania? And because that's the only thing I can think of is why they have the Usos involved in this as well. But then there's also LA Knight. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, I didn't even think
So,
about it. He's
so,
driving
so
Heyman in the ambulance.
yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think of is like, that he might be the guy that challenges Brock at Mania. Um,
Mm, I could see that.
I think it's come down to like either him or Obafemi.
Yeah.
Um,
I think Gunther's too soon. I say
yeah,
maybe wait till SummerSlam if you're going to do Brock Gunther.
well, that's what people are thinking online because SummerSlam this year is in Minneapolis.
Okay.
And so if they do Gunther and Brock in like if Brock loses, he has to retire thing because that's Gunther's whole shtick right now.
Hmm.
Um, I could see that happening, and he retires in his hometown or whatever. But I think what they should do is if they're going to do that at SummerSlam, then Brock should not lose a single match leading up to that.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely only benefit him and Gunther for the story, like just the whole retirement thing. I
Mhm.
that's probably a good idea. Yeah, I mean, it's Brock's last hoorah. Like you gotta protect him, send him out in a good way, have the victory for Gunther actually mean something for when he goes over. Yeah, I'd be fine with that. It it's not exactly the way I'd envisioned Brock's career ending necessarily,
Right.
but I know his part-time schedule is you know it's very lax. So he's probably not gonna do anything else between now and then other than Mania.
So if Gunther does beat Brock,
Mhm.
how do you see him beating Brock? Does he make him tap out? Does he make him pass out, or does he? I mean, does he pin him? Like, what do
I
you
would
think the best route would go?
pass out. I think the unfortunately, and I hate to say this because I don't necessarily hate Jey Uso, but
Mhm.
having him repeat the same finish of Jey Uso just doesn't. It's not enough. Like
Right.
he's earned a little bit more than that. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if we've ever seen Brock pass out from a submission.
Not that I can remember.
So there you go. Like that's probably the only thing you could do to
Because I think
really drive it
he ha-
home with the fans.
he has tapped out before. I think against Kurt Angle years ago, maybe.
Hmm.
Or it might have
Yeah,
been. Was it Cena? I can't remember.
I can't remember either.
I don't think it was I think it was Kurt Angle, but it's again that's another time in wrestling I need to go back and revisit as well. Because I love the ruthless aggression era too, man. I don't know about you, but like there was so many guys in there that they had such an excellent roster at the time,
Oh
especially
yeah.
around like 2005. Because I ended up becoming a huge Batista fan around that time.
Hmm.
This was like when he won the Rumble, and then he went on to face Triple H at Mania that year. It was just that was a great time as well. I mean, but I still don't think it matches up to the Attitude Era. The same as far as like
Yeah.
because there's just levels and levels of the Attitude Era, man. It's hard to beat when it comes, my personal interest with that. But
Yeah.
the next question I want to ask you, man, is do you collect anything related to wrestling?
Um, Not so much anymore, other than maybe like shirts and hoodies and stuff. Like I
Mhm.
get that stuff still, but if I can find like a really old like VHS tape from back in the day or like some really old DVD stuff that I don't have already, then yeah, I'll definitely pick it up. But no, not really like the new championships and like replica stuff. Like I don't really get any of that stuff. But I do have a vast physical media collection that I'm always
Right.
looking to add more to.
So what about like the wrestling toys, like action figures or anything like that?
No, I've got so many damn horror figures that I was thinking to myself the other day, as far as like putting them up. Like if I did have anything else, I couldn't put it anywhere in terms of figures, just because that's such a delicate thing. I'm the one of those people. I don't take anything out of the package,
Mhm.
so that takes up even more space than just placing the figure on a shelf. So, no. Short answer, no, I don't.
So I'm half and half really. Like there's some things I will open and display, just if I think it would look better out of the box, but there are a lot of things I also keep in the packaging as well. Just that is if the pack, I think the packaging looks nice, it looks really present. Like I'll, for example, the NECA Ben Cooper Halloween costume, like
Okay.
kids.
Hmm.
I have like you can't see it, but I have like a ton of them lined up at the top of this wall behind me.
Nice.
I love that line, and I think just the boxes that those are in, they're real small. They're like this, and so you can display a ton of them, together on the wall. Um, and that packaging is just awesome because it reminds me of the old packaging that the Ben Cooper costumes actually came in.
Hmm.
Um, do you collect any of those at all?
Mm-mm. No.
I think it's just a nostalgia thing for me, man. Because because a lot of those costumes that they made for those figures, I actually had those costumes as a kid, and
Oh
uh,
wow.
yeah, because I loved dressing up as a kid, even if it wasn't Halloween or whatever. I had like a whole collection of costumes that my mom and dad would get me like around Halloween time, but I would like wear them and stuff all throughout the year. And like I was a huge Ninja Turtles fan growing up, so
Me too.
I had a Ninja Turtles costumes and stuff, and like that's a whole nother like conversation. I could talk about Ninja Turtles all day too. That was the first tattoo I got. My left leg is a half leg sleeve of Ninja Turtles. Uh,
Wow.
that was the first tattoo I ever got back like well 20 years ago, 2006.
Wow.
So yeah,
That's cool.
but yeah, maybe I'll do like a video sometime on my Ninja Turtles fandom. But
That'd be cool. I'd like to see it.
did you what about wrestling magazines? Did you ever like collect those or just look at them and stuff when you were growing up?
Yeah, that I completely forgot about that. I do have quite a few of those. Of course, I stopped at a certain point because I had way too many magazines coming in, not just wrestling, but video game magazines. I had PlayStation Magazine, Electronic Gaming Monthly, and all that stuff. I mean, it was getting to the point where I was just having stacks and stacks of magazines. So yeah, but I still have quite a few of the wrestling stuff, not so much of the video game stuff anymore.
That's a big thing that I still collect to this day is magazines, like from wrestling to horror movies, to even like I had video game magazines. I used to have a subscription to a video game magazine in like the '90s into the early 2000s called Game Pro magazine.
I
Uh,
remember
do,
that.
Yeah, and and I have had like this. There was a character, so like he was like one of the writers of like the articles in Game Pro magazine. His name was Doctor Zombie, and like I've had like that's my email part of my email address that I've had ever since like the the early 2000s because of that character. And
Wow.
there was like another one. I think it was like Dan Electra or something. He's a character that's like made of lightning. Do you remember all the characters from Game Pro magazine?
Yeah, yeah, that was man, it's a fun time. You're taking me back, man. I love all that stuff. I wish I had kept a lot of it, but again, just over the years moving different places and just space wise, I probably do have more than I remember because I have a storage locker where I have a ton of stuff. I have a ton of my VHS tapes and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And I want to say like 95% of all my figures and a lot of that stuff from way back when I was younger is all in there. Um, I got to dig that out. That could be a whole.
Yeah, it definitely could because I was thinking about that myself. Like I have so many magazines I could just show these off on a video or something.
Yeah.
And like I have Nintendo Powers. I even have like you mentioned PlayStation
Hmm.
magazines and just all kinds of that stuff, man. But yeah, like what when you were like looking at the wrestling magazines back in the day, like was there like a certain one like WWF magazine or maybe Pro Wrestling Illustrated that you liked better than the others?
No, I just at that time I was just trying to consume anything and everything. I wasn't really necessarily partial to anything. Um, but I do remember fondly one of my favorite ones, and it's probably here. Well, not down here, but upstairs somewhere. It's DX on the cover. Um, I want to say it was like 98 or 99. It's
It
the Outlaws and HBK. No Shawn Michaels though. God, I can't remember the name of it, but Yeah, that was one of my favorite covers because I was a huge DX fan back then.
So you said what year did you say it was?
I want to say 98 or 99.
And it has the Outlaws and Shawn Michaels on the cover?
Shawn Michaels is not. Triple H is, and I know the Outlaws are on there. Probably
Uh,
X Pac as well.
well, the ones I can remember right off the top of my head, there was one where they were all wearing these powdered wigs and they had like the American flag wrapped around them. And I
Mhm.
think China's on that cover too. But there's also another one where they're wearing like these pinstripe suits.
I think that's it. I think that might be it.
Yeah, I have that one over here somewhere. Actually,
Oh shit.
that's a good cover, man. Because like back when I
Yeah.
met Billy Gunn last year, I was trying to find like a magazine with him on the cover. I wanted him to sign it. It was between that one and the one that I actually had him sign was it's just him and he spray painted like badass or something with pink spray paint over everything. I thought that was just the best cover with just him, by himself on it. So I was like, yeah, I mean, because there's a chance, like if I had him sign the other one that had all the DX guys on it, I could probably get X Pac and Road Dogg easily, but like I would probably never get Triple H on there. So that
Yeah.
would bug the hell out of me if I couldn't complete it.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but did you ever read Pro Wrestling Illustrated growing up?
Yeah, a little. That and what was the other main one? Like there was one more that was like one of the main magazines. Do you remember?
Well, other than like WWF, WCW, then I think ECW had like a short-lived magazine of their own. But as
Mhm.
far as like the, one that kind of spread across all the promotions, there was like Pro Wrestling Illustrated. There was one called The Wrestler. Um, there was one called Inside Wrestling.
I think it's that one, Inside Wrestling. I think.
Okay.
I wish I had pulled a lot of those out. That's why at some point we got to do a show with CK and Garrett and just get
Yeah, that
a
would
ton
be
of
fun as
physical
hell,
stuff
dude.
out. Yeah, I was so I was looking in the box that I have upstairs, and there's so much stuff wrestling related, like that. I was just like, oh my! I had a sealed Attitude Era, like metal sign that they sold back then. I found like my old Smoking Skull Championship from back then, and it's still in good condition. Still folds out. It's not broken or anything. There was just so much stuff in there. Yeah, we got to do a physical media like
Oh yeah, man.
wrestling show.
Just like you have, show off like just any kind of collectibles. I mean, like magazines,
Hell yeah.
VHSs. I'm like, and it's funny you mentioned it because it made me think of like during the Attitude Era, WWF was putting a lot of like merch out with their wrestlers and just the WWF name on so much stuff. Do you remember during this time, like this is maybe like 98, 99, um, WWF partnered up with I forget what the name of the company is, but that they're like the dragster car racing. Like they're like
Mm,
the funny cars they're called, I guess. So they had like a whole line. WWF put out a whole line of these like dragster cars. There's like a Stone Cold, Undertaker, Kane, Triple H, just different
mhm.
and I had almost every single one of those. Like I didn't even care about car racing at the time, but I just wanted if it had something wrestling on it, I didn't
Uh-huh.
care what it was. Like they even made like this is at the height of Beanie Babies, like the TY Beanie Babies like craze. WWF was putting out like these bears, and they had like one for all the different. They even had a Val Venus like purple bear. I think I still have it somewhere. And
That's
and then
amazing.
and then like right after WCW started doing the same thing because I have a Conan Wolf Pack like that
Wow.
too. But like it's just crazy like how much merchandise that they were putting out for all of wrestling back then that just wasn't even remotely related to wrestling.
Oh yeah.
So and
Sky's the limit. Especially now because dude, think about Danhausen too. Like
mhm.
just the merch that's gonna drop for this guy. I just saw some of his stuff earlier today on Instagram, and I was just thinking, like, man, that guy's he's gonna make some real money, like some
Yeah,
serious
they
cash.
just well, it's not out yet, but I guess you can go ahead and pre-order it now. But like, there's a company called Big Shots that looks like the old plush wrestling buddies, and so they posted up today the Danhausen one that's going to be coming out.
Wow.
And I'm like, man, that's crazy. Like he got in before Cardona did on those on those Big Shots, because they I think they've only put out like a lot of legends mostly. Like they've done Hogan and Undertaker and Warrior, Macho Man, Stone Cold, but then like they announced today Danhausen, and and I'm like, well, that's awesome. Like, but because I'm a fan of Danhausen, I know he's a lot of people that are kind of like trying to warm up to him right now that might
Hmm.
not be familiar with this stuff before WWE. But I mean, if you look at what people are saying about him now online as opposed to when he debuted at Elimination Chamber, it's like night and day, man.
I've noticed that too, especially even on Raw this past week, where his catchphrase of "you're cursed" or whatever kind
Mhm.
of got a bit of a pop there. I don't know if you heard that, but
Yeah, because they like said it along with him. Yeah.
yeah. And then I saw something else that WWE put out. Apparently, this was because I skipped like the ads on Netflix
Hmm.
during one of like the ad breaks or something. Like they had Danhausen come out and pass out T-shirts to the
Yeah.
audience.
And like in that video, he grabs like a wad of shirts and just
Throws it
throws
to one
to
person.
one, to one guy. One of the biggest complaints I've been seeing about that is that, oh, they botched the lighting when he was leaving the ring. I'm like, no, that was 100% on purpose. Because if
Mm,
like once you finally get to know the Danhausen character, you'll know that was 100% on purpose. Because I've
yep.
been following that guy for a long, even before he was in AEW. Like I was just watching his YouTube videos because he would do like unboxings and like show like action figures he would buy and stuff, and he would go to these toy stores and like have a camera follow him around all that.
It's
Such a
historic to
funny guy.
me. Historic already in the sense that like where he developed the character and like where it's come from to now, like being in the, I mean, WWE's the big time, like getting that deal and like he's gonna have so much cool stuff coming for him in the future. I'm sure of it. Just the way they're using him so far, I think they've got a good idea of like how to use him. I think he'll be successful regardless, but that's another guy I'm super happy for. I've never met him, but I've
Yeah,
met
me
other
neither.
people who
I would
have,
love
and
to.
everybody says the same thing from people that I know that have met him, from people that are in the business, the actual wrestlers. He's the nicest guy. He knows a
Mhm.
lot about the business, etc. And I always like seeing that kind of thing. Like that's that's great. Like he's going to be so big. I just wish nothing but the best for that dude. Like I was underwhelmed by his chamber debut, but
Mhm.
I mean, that was kind of a mixed bag. The way they did it, they were probably some of the audience was a bit underwhelmed by him just leaving and just the little puff of smoke. Like, but in a weird way, it's like it's very him, like it's very
Yeah, it
Danhausen.
is.
So, yeah,
Because
I was. Go ahead.
he's like Svengoolie,
Yeah,
in a way, because I think
yeah.
he was even on Svengoolie's show once. But he's just like this kind of like goofy horror host character.
Hmm.
And I think that's what's so appealing to me about him. And just
Yeah,
I
same.
think if like I said, if you watch his videos from years ago on YouTube and stuff, as he was kind of like still developing the character on his channel, and then it just kind of went into this whole thing. He's like, well, I'm just gonna start doing unboxings, and like there's a whole video he did where he's like how to make a pizza, and like he just opens his oven and it's just like a Domino's pizza in the
Right.
box or
That
something like that. And
that's what
I
I
love
love. His commitment to the character is so. How could you not be a fan of that? Like somebody who's just so dedicated, always
it's
in the
funny,
character
man.
and evolving it over the years. Like it's crazy. His AEW run was, was what it was, and it was
Yeah.
definitely questionable, like how they used him and everything. I don't think they really knew what to do with him exactly, but I think he's in the best spot like possible with being with WWE right now.
Oh, Oh yeah, they're going to do a lot of big things with him for sure. And I think if they only keep him working with certain guys, like right now they got him working with the Miz because the Miz is supposed to be like a mentor or something. If you watch that episode of
Yeah,
SmackDown, so and if they keep this thing up, like or you're cursed. So like what he did when he did that to Dominic on
that was
Raw.
perfect. Perfect booking.
I think that's brilliant, man. And I've been seeing a lot of really good ideas online from fans too of what they should do with him. Like if the past few times they've showed him on TV, he's been talking about, on his list, he wants to be inducted this year in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
And someone came up with this idea, and I think it's brilliant that he should be at the Hall of Fame, and like before every induction, he should try to like make his way onto the stage, but someone tries to like pushes him back off stage. I think that would just be
That would
awesome.
be great. Yeah. It would kill. I mean, there's so many cool things you could do with the character. I just I'm hoping that they know what they have and they don't saddle him with. I like R-Truth, nothing against him.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure we're going to get the moment where R-Truth mistakes him for Sting. That's just going to happen. Like,
Someone else said the same thing to me, and I was like, "Oh man!" But in order for them to do that, they would have to have Sting on board, I would think.
mm, maybe not. I think they could get away with like a line or two. Like, I don't know. We'll see. But
Either
I
that or
just
like he could maybe say like Axe or Smash or something from Demolition.
that would work too. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, it's I know we're kind of past this point because that was more of a Vince thing where once he thinks all the value's gone out of you, you're on the low
Right.
card. You're barely booked. You're barely promoted on anything. But I'm hoping that like he gets some really cool stuff, and they just don't like tuck him away on SmackDown with R-Truth or have him team with Tozawa or something. Poor Tozawa, by the way, this guy's a great worker, but his character in WWE, it's just you are where
And
you are.
someone mentioned Tozawa to me not long ago. It's like, how is he still with the company? I said, well, the only thing I can think of is that he is like their Japanese translator for a lot of their business deals. So I would imagine that's probably the only reason he's still there. Uh, but and before we move on, I just want to mention one other thing about Danhausen. Like I was talking about, like there's like good ideas out there online. So but I even thought of one too. It's kind of dumb though, to be honest. Like I thought about instead of like them having him come and wrestle. Say if they were going to do a storyline where like we're going to make you wrestle now, Danhausen, but it wouldn't really be him. Like it would show him like moments before he'd make his entrance backstage, and like he would be transforming or something. And then like some guy that comes completely not even looks anything remotely like him comes out just in Danhausen makeup and does the match for him.
That could work.
I mean, it would fit into that style of humor for his
Yeah,
character, I think.
definitely, man.
And I think that's the thing that people are really that's not familiar with is going to really learn to love. And I hope that they kind of adapt that sense of humor into themselves too, because that's definitely my sense of humor. I love goofy, stupid shit in wrestling. I don't think it should be serious all the time, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I like a bit of comedy, but there's also a fine line on like how to pull it off and how to do it. And so many times throughout the years, Vince just there wasn't a line for him. It was erased. It was all just one big thing, and a lot of his humor is weird anyway. So I think that's a lot of the reasons why like it didn't connect
Yeah, he has.
with the
This
fans.
man has very weird humor. I'll say that for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, I mean, prime example is Mae Young giving birth to a hand.
exactly. We're on the same page. I was thinking of that. I just want to say it.
So how do you feel about the state of wrestling today as opposed to when you got into it initially, years
Mhm.
ago?
I'm glad that a lot of guys and ladies that are in the business are able to make more than before. That's always nice that, I mean, hell, you're putting your whole body out there and you're destroying it. And like, I love the legends deals and stuff that they like some of the packages and stuff that they have for the guys in WWE, the guys
Mhm.
that retire. keeping some of them around as agents or producers, whatever you want to call it, just the fact that they do have all that in place. That's what I really, really like a lot, because it seemed like, 30, 40 years ago, whatever, once the promoter was done with you and your contract's over, like you're left to your own devices. You better hope that money lasts, or you invested into something that can make more money for you. Um, which was that was a very sad state of affairs. But speaking about the actual in ring and the performers and stuff like that, I think they're still at a, how do you say, not monkey see, monkey do, but it seems like there's less innovation all around for a lot of the
Right.
wrestlers. There's also, what happened to selling, man? Like that's part of why I stopped watching AEW as much as I was, because I remember there was a point where, and this is some years back, and I know you watch wrestling a lot, so you'll know. Remember when FTR and the Young Bucks were having their feud for the championships, and then the Young Bucks finally won the titles from FTR? The next week, Young Bucks have a match, and I can't remember who it was against. And it went on. It was probably a 30 to 45-minute match, it seemed like, and it never fucking ended. Every time there was supposed to be the finish, it wasn't the finish. And I'm like, I can't this is why I can't get invested like a lot of the time with AEW, and their lack of not knowing when to end matches. I know that there's a lot of smart guys there, but I don't know. Maybe it's Tony Khan, like him being a booker and never having been in the wrestling business before. I'm sure that plays into it too. But hell, like a lot of these guys, like it just seems like the lack of selling, not knowing when to end matches, doing stuff that doesn't make any sense, which I know Jim Cornette always complains about on his podcast. It just, a lot of that rubs me the wrong way. And I'm like, I thought we were moving forward. Like once, like Vince leaves the business on the WWE side of things and Triple H comes into play. And I'm like, okay, now maybe he's going to play ball. We're going to have this somewhat of a competition in between what's best in ring, not necessarily ratings, because that's kind of thrown out the window, but it didn't go in that direction. So I'm like, okay, they don't seem to care about having the best match on either show and trying to do better than the other guy, because that was kind of the second part of the catalyst for the Attitude Era. Of course, it was ratings first, but then the guys were watching each other's shows and they're like, well, I want to have the better match, like I want to stand out. So that's one of the main things that I really, really, I hate about the current state of wrestling. Just, it doesn't seem like they're moving forward with the wrestling. So many fucking outside dives and just all this stuff. I'm just like, we don't need that. Like, Austin didn't do 50 backflips or jump out of the ring, or like, you don't have to do that. I just wish it was smarter in some aspects of the way they work, storytelling as well, character development, the way they shoot things. I wish it wasn't so unpredictable. I don't even think that's just me being a Smart fan. There was a lot of unpredictable stuff, when I was a Smart fan, at least some of the ruthless aggression stuff. There were angles here and there that, like, hey, you probably wouldn't see this coming or that coming, or there's an unexpected, like JBL's championship run. Nobody could have predicted that guy would have been a fucking champion for a year. Right. Love it or hate it, it wasn't predictable.
Oh, I loved it. I think JBL's one of the best heels of all time.
Yeah, I would agree.
So do you think with like the current style in modern wrestling, do you think a lot of that is just like an age thing? Meaning like a lot of these guys that are, especially these guys in their early 20s, maybe even to late 20s. So they would have been born back right around when the Attitude Era started. And, wrestling started to change, as far as like the style of it. Well, it will not really change, exactly, but there was a new kind of style of wrestling coming around in the early 2000s with TNA and the X Division.
Oh yeah,
and I think a lot of these younger guys nowadays kind of like embody their style after a lot of those X Division guys. So do you think that that's why that we have so much of that style nowadays? Or
I think that's a big component of it. part of me wants to say that there's just a lack of overall knowledge from yesteryear of like the Memphis style of wrestling, like back even in the 90s. Um, it has to be a combination of the X Division thing and then just the lack of, well, I don't know, because like you got a lot of guys still around, right? Like you
Mhm.
still got the old timers there, like backstage, even in AEW, not just WWE. You have a
Mhm.
lot of those like old guys there. So like, are they really imparting like the kind of knowledge that they should be on these guys, or maybe they're just not following all their advice and just trying to do their own thing and make their own
Could
style?
be, because within AEW, it seems like that Tony Khan gives a lot of those guys creative freedom, and not
Mhm.
just say, "Oh, well, listen to your agent or your producer or whatever for this match." It seems like they're just kind of letting them go out there and do whatever a lot of the times.
Mhm.
And while I still watch AEW because I watch fucking everything, but I watch it and there's things I do like about it. I do definitely have gripes about it too. And you mentioned selling being one of those biggest things. That is same for me. And there's a girl right now in AEW. While I like her, I think she's got a good character. Her name's Willow Nightingale.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
she something she did, I think it was maybe like either regular tag match or 6-man tag match. This was at the time when she was feuding with Sasha or Mercedes Monet, in the company. And the match ends when Mercedes does her finisher on Willow and gets like a quick 3 count because like her finisher comes like out of nowhere. And then, or no, Mercedes didn't do her. It was her partner Athena that did like her finisher. But then like Mercedes got the pin, and immediately after the 3 count, Willow gets right back up and chases Mercedes out of the ring. I'm like, she no sold Athena's finisher at all. I mean, I was like, "What the fuck?" And like, this was like I saw this moment on a Facebook post that AEW themselves posted, and like the whole comment section on that post was just flooded like, "Well, glad you really sold that there, Willow," and like was just ripping it apart, man. I'm like, they got to learn from this. They got to be able
You
to
would.
realize, like, in that moment, like, oh, I should not do this, or
Mhm.
it's going to make it like people have been like, what the fuck? People that are wise to how all that works, or, they're going to know, yeah, it's scripted or whatever, but they're still like, it's just a form of the show and the entertainment aspect of it that, you want a bit of realism there. So
Oh yeah, definitely.
I don't know, man. It when I seen that, it really bothered me. I was like, oh, I was like, I want to like AEW, but they fall short so many times.
Mhm.
Uh, but
Yeah.
I am looking forward to the pay-per-view, which is next Sunday, Revolution. I mean, I will say that about AEW, like you can say all you want about them if you don't like them or whatever, but they put on great pay-per-views, man.
Yeah,
I've
the
never
last
seen
one
a
they
bad one.
did, what was the last one they did? I forgot.
Um, I forget what it was called. It was the one where they had like the fatal four way with MJF, Hangman,
Yeah.
Swerve, and Joe.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. That I enjoyed that. Like there was, of course there was a couple things here and there. I was like, but
yeah,
overall, like, I mean, I not to mention I love MJF. Let's just get that
me
out
too,
there.
too.
Easily one of the best in the company, if not the best. Love the mic work, in ring as well. I'm so glad that we're gonna have him for a while, and he got in the business so young because like I know that at some point he will go to WWE,
Oh
and
yeah,
I can
100%.
only imagine what they do with him over there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's AEW's got its moments for sure, and they definitely got the talent. I mean, that always draws me back into almost any promotion, regardless of how they book or angles or whatever. The talent, man, like even MLW, I was always in and out on that. But when Cross got the title, I'm like, here we go. Fuck yeah. Like, especially because I was always a Cross guy.
Me
Like,
too.
and it just, it's so depressing to think about how he was done in his second run for WWE.
Oh God,
Like,
the
and the
the
host
Final
and joint.
Testament,
Oh,
and poor Paul Ellering, poor the authors of Pain, like all those guys that was all in
mhm.
that group, the Final Testament, like it
What the
seems like
hell
they're
happened with them? Like, because their work rate versus main roster and NXT, it's just like, what the fuck? Is this the same tag team?
I think it's just oversaturated with the roster, like because they had those guys, and at the same time they were bringing in the Wyatt Six, and this
Yeah, that's true.
I think they just had too like right now. I still think that there's too many stables in WWE because you have the Wyatt Six, you have MFT, you have the Vision, the Judgment Day. Um, I mean, is there any ones that I'm missing there?
Mm,
Then you got the
no,
ones that are also like in NXT as well, like which
right.
there is a stable I'm actually kind of starting to like in NXT called Birthright, which is
Hmm.
led by Lexis King, and then on tonight's episode of NXT, William Regal's son Charlie Dempsey, he just joined the group,
Oh
so
shit, interesting. Well, I as soon as I got home, I hopped on here pretty much, but I'm gonna check that out.
yeah, because like during the match, like Fit Finley and Regal actually come out onto the stage during that match, and it's really cool, man. I thought tonight's episode was great, and
Nice.
like next week is the triple threat between Sol Ruka, JC Jane, and what's her name, Zarya.
Yeah.
So that's for the
Okay.
title, and I think they're finally going to pull the trigger on Sol Ruka and give her the title. Maybe if not at that one, it's going to be very soon. Like she's
They'd
going to
have
get
to.
it. Like she's like the modern version of Lita, I think.
That's what I always think. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's even starting to wear like the real baggy pants and stuff like Lita. So I think
Oh man, yeah. That's
that's the route they're going. But I think she's going to be a really big star in WWE too going forward.
yeah, man. I hope so. But yeah. So Cross, yeah, him getting that title, I'm like, well, it's something. He's already a great worker. He doesn't need to work on that. Doesn't need to improve his body or anything like that. It just I don't know what it'll take for them to see the value in him. Clearly, they did see it at one point. I don't know what happened. I know people always talk about his main roster call up and that being a flounder, but I mean, he had his thing with Roman, and I even watched him on his social media say, like, they don't even know what happened with that. Like, he was going to have
Well,
the whole program with Roman, and then it just dropped.
yeah, and that's like when he came out there, he just set down the hourglass on the ring in front of Roman, right? And just
Hmm.
nothing came of that.
Yeah. Yep.
That's so odd, man. Like, and I'm glad that you mentioned his work in MLW because like, um, I don't know a lot of people aside from myself, in my area at least, that watches it because like every time I talk to other wrestling fans around here, like oh I don't watch that, I only just watch WWE or AEW or whatever, It's on,
Mhm.
so but like I'm one of those guys like I try to check out everything. I even check out like JCW what they've been doing here recently. Vince Russo in the fold now, and
Is
so
that working out? Like, I've seen clips, but I've now actually sat down and watched an entire show. What's it like?
I mean, it's goofy, but
Okay.
I like it because that's the way JCW has kind of been for several years. Like they kind of have that comedy aspect to them more. And there was a company back in the day, called Chikara that I
Chikara.
love.
Yeah.
That guys like a lot of the guys that are in AEW were in that company. Orange Cassidy used to be a part of a stable in Chikara called the Colony, where they were all these ants, and I think he was Fire Ant in that group because they were all like these masked wrestlers, and that's what mostly Chikara was like masked wrestlers, and then just like
Mhm.
comedy, gimmicks and stuff, and um, but
PWG was like that too, at least with some of the
yeah,
comedy. Yeah.
yeah, well, that's kind of where like Chikara came from. Like it kind of like became its own. It started within PWG, but then
Hmm.
it became its own thing. And because Mike Quackenbush, who was in PWG at the time, he's the one that started Chikara. Him and Super Dragon started it
Mm.
together. And but yeah, just I think a lot of awesome talent have came from that,
Yeah.
and made them into more serious characters and
Oh yeah.
in different promotions because there's guys that were um that are in WWE right now that were in Chikara at one point. But yeah, I mean, I think, when it comes to, all that stuff, I like all different styles of wrestling, and I'm glad you mentioned MLW because when I seen Cross, he was in that battle royal and he won the title. I was like, fuck yeah, they're at least somebody's doing something with him.
Yeah, dumping out Riddle and the other guys.
Hmm.
And what's funny about Riddle, I didn't expect him. I don't know why. I just didn't expect him to stick around in pro wrestling after he was done with WWE. I was like, well, he'll go out and do something else. But I mean, to see him still working, it's pretty interesting. I guess he got bit by the wrestling bug. He's like, I want to keep doing this. I like this. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and one other thing I wanted to mention, because we were talking about AEW.
Mhm.
Now I somewhat am a fan of Darby Allin, but I tell you something, I think that guy is starting to get a little bit of an ego on him because I don't know if you watched the interview he did with Chris Van Vliet or not yet,
I didn't watch it yet. No.
but there's a part in the interview where Chris Van Vliet is talking about there's this comparison with Darby Allin online amongst a lot of wrestling fans to Spike Dudley, and I definitely see that. And he's like, oh, I don't see it. I'm more of a wrestler's wrestler than Spike Dudley. I'm like, dude, come on.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. There's it's like parallel like
yeah,
between the two. Like I don't know what he's not seeing. It's
just
so obvious.
yeah, and just his response, like it came off as if like he's better than Spike Dudley ever was, and like if there's no comparison between them at all. I'm like, all right, bud, whatever. But
Yeah, I mean, hell, like he should take that for high praise.
yeah, for sure.
I like Darby, but I hadn't heard that, and like I said, I hadn't seen the shoot yet. But
Yeah,
that's unfortunate to hear.
I haven't watched the full interview, but that was just a clip that showed up on like my Facebook or Instagram or something, and I was like, it kind of took me aback. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, dude, I mean, you should, if somebody says that about you, you should take that as a compliment because,
Exactly.
they're very similar sizes. They've had similar spots done to them. Like when
Hmm.
Cesaro threw Darby like out of the ring onto the announcer table. I mean, they did that. Bam Bam Bigelow and Mike Awesome, guys like that, did that shit to Spike all the time.
Yeah.
And I just think that would, by fans seeing that comparison, making that comparison, I feel like it would be like an honor if I was in Darby's shoes. But I don't know. Guy climbs Mount Everest and now he thinks he's better than everybody. I don't know.
Right.
But
Were you? Sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, man.
Were you a CZW guy? Did you ever get into that?
Somewhat, yes.
Okay.
So that was where I think I first ever saw a wrestler named Jack Evans. Are you familiar with Jack Evans?
Oh yeah.
Because he was in AEW there for a little bit towards the beginning, and then he did stuff in Lucha Underground, and he was doing stuff in Ring of Honor as well too, like in the early 2000s, because he was like in a stable with Austin Aries and Roderick Strong and guys like that. But like I think the first time I ever saw him was in CZW. I think it was one of those like Cage of Death matches or whatever,
Hmm.
and Abyss from TNA was actually at this show, and it was like a whole group of guys were on the outside of the cage, and Jack Evans climbs up the side of the cage, like from one side of the ring into down into the ring, runs over to the other corner, climbs back up the cage, gets on top, and does like this insane flip move off the top of the cage onto Abyss and all these other guys. And I'm like, I mean, the way it came down and it hit, it looked like he killed himself. and so that was my introduction really to CZW, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And while I'm not huge into deathmatch wrestling,
Hmm.
um, I mean, back then, I mean, there was deathmatch wrestling, but CZW, like at this time when I was watching it, it just, it was just kind of regular, typical standard wrestling matches and stuff too. They had in there, but I think another one thing that really kind of stood out to me during that time was was this promo that Zandig did from CZW, where he's like, Jesus, and it was like a meme, like forever, like online in the wrestling community, where like, because he's like talking, and but he messes up and he forgets his lines, and then he just
Mhm.
like pauses and he just goes, Jesus, real loud, and just kind of walks off. I'm like, and it was just it was kind of one of the you know this wrestling meme thing with him for a while. But yeah, I watched a lot of CZW, not so much anymore. I'm not even sure if they're even still around. Are they still around? Because I've been
I haven't watched it in a long time. I kind of got out of it a little bit after, because like I remember I was going to call him Dean Ambrose. Moxley was champion at the time, I think. And
okay.
I think that's where I first saw him, because his promos at the time were so different. And I
Mhm.
was like, this is different. This is interesting. I'm kind of liking this guy. So once he went to like FCW and came up through that and through NXT, and then of course the Shield and all that, I was just like, I was all in. I was a huge fan of him, like
Mhm.
early on and throughout the Shield. I don't know what it is about him now, like that he's in AEW. Is something just doesn't click. Like it's something off with it. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because he's older. I don't know.
It
He's
is.
definitely still doing the same type of character work in a way,
Yeah.
because he's always been the scrappy brawler kind of guy. But I just miss his promos from back then, like the fucking dirty trench coat or whatever, sitting
Mhm.
between the dumpsters, almost like a Raven kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
Yeah. Me too, man. And like I don't really know like what there is left to do with him in AEW. I mean, there's a lot of people that seems to think that he's not ever going to go back to the WWE, which I think he will personally
He
at
will.
some point.
He will.
Um, but right now in AEW, like they're this Death Riders stable he's got going. Like I
I'm
mean,
not
it was
into that.
I don't really know what they're where they're going with that. And then it's just weird because he's like that's supposed to be a heel stable, but there are times here lately where Moxley has been showing like babyface tendencies, but and they've not really addressed it or anything at all. It's like it's just I don't know if that's just how AEW style works because I've noticed it with a lot of guys. Like they just everybody's just tweeners, or you're either just straight baby faces or you're a tweener. There's no real heels in there. Even like MJF, he's supposed to be seen as a heel, but
Mhm.
people are cheering him and stuff. Like
Mhm.
you don't do that really. With just if they're just a straight up heel, like they're going to get just straight boos pretty much. I mean, you might get some fan here or there cheering for them, but like it's not going to be noticeable, like
Right.
how like MJF is getting cheers or guys like that. Um, Now, like someone like Don Callis in AEW, that's a 100% heel. Like you don't ever hear that guy get cheered. But I think it's
Right.
just people just think don't like just genuinely don't really like Don Callis. I think he's just a huge douche. So
Yeah.
because that's the way I've always seen from the moment he was doing the Truth Commission stuff back, in
And then
WWF and
Cyrus and
Cyrus and
ECW.
ECW and uh yeah, I never really liked that guy to be honest.
Yes,
Um,
some people like that are just better fit as a life heel, like
mhm.
much like the Miz. Like you mentioned him earlier. I never really got into like his brief babyface run that
Me
he
either.
had there.
Doesn't work for me,
Um,
man.
yeah, and he's just great as a heel. It's like just leave him as that.
It's like Sheamus is like that too, I think. I mean, I know there's some he does have a fan base out there that likes him as a baby face, but I think Sheamus's best work is when he's a heel.
I would
From,
agree.
from the moment when he first came into WWE and he had that huge push when he first came in, and then the stuff he was doing with Cesaro and their tag team, the Bar. I love that stuff, and a lot of people made fun of like him getting the mohawk and everything. I thought it looked great. I thought it worked for him. Um,
Yeah, it did.
but there's certain guys like that it they only really work as a heel or they only really work as a baby face.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, definitely Miz is one of them for sure, like you said.
Yeah, man. That's the worst thing that they've done throughout the years, mostly in WWE, is trying to force somebody to be a face or a heel, and it just doesn't catch on. Obviously, it's much easier to be hated,
Mhm.
but I mean, in some ways, it's really, really hard to be liked. At least during the Vince era, when you were given such cookie cutter bullshit. I mean, look at how long it took Roman Reigns to get over.
Yeah.
Like almost 10 years. That's the one. That guy's an anomaly because I can't ever think of anybody that was given, I mean, shit, dude, like 50 million fucking chances to get over, and
Yeah.
he really didn't ever get over as a face, at least until he turned heel, and then he turned face after being with Heyman and the bloodline thing.
Like, and I've seen everything that Roman's done since he came into WWE, but like, right before his like current character that he has in the company right now, about when he it started back when the whole title run started with Paul Heyman as his manager, and he's wearing the Ulafala and has the bloodline and all that. Right before that stuff, he's still wearing kind of the shield, SWAT stuff, and it had like the double R's on his like chest protector, and he was feuding with Baron Corbin over loser eats a
The
can of
dog
dog
food.
food something. Like I can't. It's been so long now. I can't even remember how he transitioned from that look to the current one. Can you?
Yeah, I mean, well, it definitely started in 2020 when he got with Heyman. I'm almost 100%. I'd bet my whole fucking paycheck that Heyman mentored the shit out of this guy,
Had
and
to.
we've seen those type of tapes from ECW, like the behind the scenes where he's working with guys and just drilling it into their head, like you got to do this, you got to like go again. Like he's doing that with somebody in a clip where I seen him try to get him to cut a promo, a guy to cut a promo for like an hour or two, like just go again, shoot it, do it again, do it again. So he found his confidence, I think, through the help of working with Heyman, and that's what he was sorely lacking before. You watch any of those older promos when he was a face, and he just wasn't confident in what he was saying. I think Vince probably wanted him to be a little bit of himself and a little bit of that really bad talker for all the stuff they were giving him to say. Just it made him really, really shitty. It it was one of the worst examples that I could think of like somebody in the back feeding him everything, and then he's just regurgitating it like on camera, and it's just falling flat. There's
Yeah.
no, you're not getting the reaction you want. And I know in WWE sometimes they'll say, well, he's getting a reaction in general. That's what we want. But clearly they wanted him to be the face of the company and a true larger than life white meat baby face, like Stone Cold would say. Um, I'm glad he found his direction though, because the character that he has now, like I said a second ago, fully confident. Even in his in ring, I mean, he could always. I think he could work, but just the way he does stuff now, it's a vast difference from the way he was back then, and that was just a few years back. Like that's not even that long ago.
Right.
But yeah, it was Heyman, obviously. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I would think so. It has to be because, like, there was, like you said, nothing else was really working for him time until like he got with Heyman. Um, and do you think, because Paul Heyman is obviously a huge influence on the direction that WWE is going and the writing and all that. And if you end up watching WWE Unreal, you'll see like a lot of that with him, backstage and the writers meetings and stuff that they do. But do you think when Punk came back to WWE, do you think that Heyman was a huge influence on that as well?
mm, I think so. I think it's safe to say that he was probably like, how should I say? It's like a middleman, um, the liaison to like get all parties
Mhm.
seated at a table and to hash out their issues and come up with some sort of deal so that they can all make money from him being back in the company.
Yeah, I mean, I just imagine so, just because, especially just knowing the real life relationship, the friendship between
Right.
Punk and Heyman. And so, I mean, I would imagine like, Punk probably wanted to come back at a point anyway after all the stuff that happened with AEW and his fight with Jungle Boy in the UK or whatever. Uh, real glass, brother. Uh,
What do you
but
say? Cry me a river.
yeah, Crimea River. But I really get it has to be Heyman, and that's why, and that's another reason. I can't state that enough how much I love Paul Heyman,
Me
and
too.
just what an inspiration he's been to just so many people that are wanting to get into the business, and just his mind. He has, to me, the greatest mind in wrestling history, and a long time ago I would have said Bobby Heenan was the greatest mind in wrestling, and it's funny because Paul Heyman, he drew all that inspiration of who he would become from Bobby Heenan. And I just think,
Right.
yeah, he's the greatest mind that wrestling has ever had. And I think there's a lot of
I
people that feel
agree.
that same way. Um,
I agree 100%, man. I'm a huge Paul Heyman guy. Always have been.
mhm,
Um, Especially his days during when he's running ECW,
yeah.
the trench coat and the headphones and the fucking pass that he had on and everything. Um, is there? Um, do you think there's a place for him to run a brand in WWE, not NXT, because HBK's kind of got that. They tried to do that a little bit, at least maybe in character only, because I doubt Bischoff was writing the show or Heyman. And
Mhm.
I'm referencing the time where they brought, I think Heyman was going to run Raw and Bischoff was going to run SmackDown. Do you remember that some years back? They were going
Yeah.
to do that. Okay. And it lasted for about 2 weeks or so. And
Right.
then Bischoff was gone and then Heyman was still there, but kind of not really. Do you think there's a point in time where we could see that happen? I would still like that to happen where Heyman's booking the show.
I hope so, and I would like to see both him and Punk working together, like, because Punk's not got that much.
Yeah.
He's not got that much left in ring. So, and he's already stated that he wants to work with the younger talent to help develop them as the years go on. So, I would love to see that, even if it's not Punk working with. I would love to see Heyman doing something like that because years ago, back when Punk was in OVW, that's really where him and Heyman, they linked up, and because
Mm-hmm.
Heyman was running OVW at the time, and it was great. There was a
Yeah.
lot of talent that came from that era of Paul Heyman, running OVW, and they would bleed over to coming into WWE and all that. So, yeah, if they could do that, if they could kind of give Heyman like free reign again like that, on a certain show, I think it would be amazing.
They had their chance in 2006, but you know how Vince is. He's got to
Mhm.
micromanage, and it was never going to work with the relaunch of
Well,
ECW. I
that
wish
was
that had worked, but it wasn't going to happen.
that was just Vince being petty, because he knew from the moment that he acquired ECW and they were going to do that show and everything. He's like, I'm going to break these motherfuckers down, and just make them look foolish, because
You think he just wanted to kill it?
I think so. Yeah, 100%. Because I just think that the only, even though he worked with ECW prior to the buyout, back in the late 90s and stuff, I think when it comes to Vince, he's only looking out for himself and his baby, which is the WWE.
Mhm.
And that's why, I mean, at least he gave ECW a chance and gave them like their own show. He was like, fuck WCW. I bought you, and I'm going to do nothing with you. I'm going to put you guys in this one little thing and this invasion angle, and then you're done.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, he definitely didn't do it any favors with the Bagwell Booker T thing.
Oh, God. Poor Buff
Um,
Bagwell.
yeah, yeah, it was kind of dead on arrival, just because their envisionment of what that promotion was ever going to be, at least under their banner, like it was always going to be secondary. That's my point. Like
Yep.
so that I can say less because I was going to go into a whole long thing, but it was always going to be secondary. Really, anything would be to WWE. I mean, even ECW. I mean, like you said, he just wanted to kill it, and he pretty much did. Um,
I think Mark is froze here. Let's see here. Try to refresh this real quick. Uh-oh. Well, that's all right. We can go back. I can go back and edit this. Um, but yeah, like, I mean, we'll wait for Mark to get back here for just a second. Me message him real quick. All right, so I think Mark went out. We'll wait on him for just a few minutes. I'm sure he'll be back in here. It may be just StreamYard doing something weird. Sorry about this, guys. Give me just a minute here. Be right back, guys.
I'm back.
All right, we're back. So that's no problem. What happened there?
That was a power outage because it's raining and lightning, thunder outside. So it's weather's not great. And typically when that happens, like I'll have a brief power outage,
Oh,
but we're good though.
yeah, it's no big deal, man. Like I can just go back and edit that little portion that just where there's like some dead air or whatever. But like, going back just because you froze back there. What were you saying about that again?
Oh, just the fact that he was going to kill it. Like it's just unfortunate for WCW because it was dead on arrival. Like he knew in his mind that like, hey, if this gets a certain reaction, like maybe we'll go with it. But I think anything and everything would be secondary to WWE, and that's sort of his problem. He never really let anything else breathe out. I mean, shit, even the original run of NXT, I mean, that failed and fizzled out. And there's all sorts of little other projects that he had that were never just going to be as big just because he didn't let it. He never
Yeah.
let any. You can't micromanage every little fucking thing you have. I know there's millions of dollars invested. I get that, but I mean, come on, give something a chance. And I think Heyman could have run that show just fine, like on his own.
Yeah, I think so too. But it just boils down to Vince didn't want it that way.
Mhm,
And it makes me think about WWE's current partnership with TNA. Like
mhm.
if Vince was still running the show, we would never ever see that. Because I just don't think like he would want to deal with any other promotion, other than his own if he didn't own it. Because if he doesn't have like 100%, control, over something that he owns, it's going to be on his product, then he just wasn't a guy that's going to do that. And we're lucky that we got to see, in the late '90s with those ECW guys showing up just to promote like Barely Legal and the little
Mhm.
instances that he did. That it's shocking knowing how Vince operated as a businessman that he even allowed that.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is surprising to like go back and look at that ever even happened. But I think maybe some of it was out of desperation to try to get something on the show that WCW
Well,
didn't have for ratings wise to try to beat Nitro. That could have
that's a
played a
great
part of it.
Yeah, that's a great point because at that time when they were bringing those ECW, because I think they were losing in the ratings
Yeah.
against WCW, um, and I I really think that's kind of how I've said this to many people. I think that's how the whole Attitude Era was created was off the backs of ECW. If
Mhm.
you look at so many things within ECW around that time, and even just a few years prior to that, like 93, 94 in ECW, they were doing things in ECW that would pretty much show up later in WWF in the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, if you go back and you look at some of the promos from like 93, 94 between Shane Douglas and Terry Funk, like
Mhm.
it felt so real, and that's what I think Vince was looking for. And when he created the Attitude Era, because and it's funny because done like the similar things, like the crucifixion of Sandman in ECW. And then they was doing that with like Stone Cold and Stephanie with Undertaker. And
Yeah.
have you ever watched that documentary called Forever Hardcore?
Yeah, it was I think it was paired with Hardcore Homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I still have those DVDs somewhere. I remember Terry Taylor being on there. He talked about
Yep.
stealing the Bam Bam Bigelow Taz spot
Yeah.
for Taker and Kane. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That I mean, they meant that's what I was thinking of when I thought of it because that's how like I learned all that stuff. Because like Sandman was on there, even talking about um, when they did the crucifixion of Sandman in ECW. Kurt Angle was there,
Right.
and
Yeah.
then he was like, "Oh, I don't want anything to do with this. I don't want my name attached to this. If you're doing stuff like that," he's like, "I'm a Christian, whatever." But then, like when they did the stuff with Undertaker and Stone Cold,
Right.
Angle was there as well, and nothing was
Hmm.
ever said about it. But I think that has to do with money and just like the power that Vince had because you know, if you look when Angle showed up there in ECW, I mean, they were just a small little promotion still at the time, based out of Philly, and Kurt Angle probably knew that they didn't hold any true power in the wrestling business at that time.
Hmm.
But so, what do you think about that? Like, you think it was just Angle didn't say anything in WWF because of like the power that Vince had and the control over the business?
I think so. I mean, there's almost no other real reason why he wouldn't say anything because while some may argue, well, it's a symbol and not a crucifix, but I mean, it's still the same
Right,
imagery, it's the
right.
same idea, but he knew which side of the bread his butter was on.
Oh
Kurt
yeah,
Angle's not. He may say a couple things here and there that I don't agree with fully 100%, but I think when it comes to business and wrestling, he knows what he's doing. I mean, it's there's no way he's going to say, "Hey Vince, I don't want that on the TV show." You know what I
mhm,
mean? So yeah, he definitely wanted to play ball. He knew how big WWF was getting, especially by that point, because I think at that point they were beating W. That would have been 98 or closer
yeah,
to 99. So yeah, he knew what he was doing. I mean, I wouldn't
yeah.
have said anything either. Like if I was him,
Well,
I would want to keep my spot.
that's very true. And like I love talking ECW like so much because I've just been a huge fan of it for so many years, and I know that I was talking to Garrett about that too when I had him here on the show, and we want to see if we can try to talk CK into doing like a WrestleMania old school review of maybe ECW Heatwave '98.
Ah, yeah. Love that show.
I think that would be a fun one to do, and I think what I want to try to like convince CK is because he was there, he was at that show, he actually like was in
Yeah, I
attendance.
remember him saying that. Yeah.
So like I'll be like, hey, let's do Heatwave 90 on WrestleManiacs. You were
Mhm.
there, so we could talk about that.
Yeah.
but
That'd be
um,
great.
but I got just a couple more questions for you, Mark. Before I get into, I just want to thank you again, man, for even being here and doing this show with me. It means a lot to me.
Thank you, man. I'm having a ball, man.
But like I said, last few questions. So this one I want to ask now is, what is your most favorite thing and your least favorite thing about being a wrestling fan?
Favorite thing, probably when and this will some the other side of the coin of this answer will double as my least favorite thing. When I can have a match or maybe an angle or something like that that plays into an overall story where I could show somebody who's not a fan of wrestling and get them into it based off of what's happening. And then the flip side of that, my least favorite thing is when something's so ridiculous and so absurd that makes me embarrassed to be a wrestling fan. Like, for example, um, this is what year is this? Maybe 2019 or 2018. And I think it was FTR and a couple of other tag teams. Do you remember the pay per view where all the teams, I think it was three or four teams, maybe, they fall into a big dumpster? And I don't know what it was supposed to be. It was like tentacles. I don't know if it was a gator
Oh my
scale.
god, yeah, I remember
Yeah.
this.
Okay. So shit like that. That's like when I'm watching wrestling, it's like I want to stay in tune with the product of like
Yeah.
of pro wrestling at its core. That's what I want it to be. And I'm all for going outside the box on certain things, but like
Mhm.
when you do some shit like that and then that's the end of the match, like I spent all this time. So to answer your question, that's what it is.
Yeah, because that shit like that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't apply to the storyline or whatever, and they don't even address it going forward. So yeah,
Eric Rowan's pet spider.
yeah, that's another one.
You can't defend shit like that, you know?
It's like but that's wrestling, man. Like they do,
Hmm.
they throw whatever at the wall and see what sticks. I mean, we've seen a lot of ridiculous, and poor Kane, man. Like back with the whole Katie Vick stuff. Like,
Oh god.
oh god, that was one of the worst things that they could ever, put. Like, hey, I can just see the conversation like between him and Vince. They're like, okay, so you fucked this dead girl years ago, and like, and and we're gonna have a whole storyline based off of that, and then throw Triple H in the mix, and he's gonna go in like have simulated sex with this corpse inside of a
How the hell did
casket.
they
I
get
mean,
that into the show?
exactly. Like what does that have to do with anything?
Hey,
It's just,
that's that bizarre, weird McMahon humor that only he finds
yeah.
funny.
Yep, for real, man. That going back to that, what we mentioned that earlier. Like he just has some of the most bizarre humor in all of wrestling, and thankfully we don't have to worry about that much anymore.
Yes, I'm so glad we're out of the tail end of the Vince era. One thing I want to ask you: do you think at this point, creatively, Triple H is burnout, booking
Yes,
wise?
yes.
That's what I
Um,
thought. I think the same thing.
because and you can really see it again, like going back to where I was talking about that show WWE Unreal. Like if you see like the writers meetings and stuff, like it's just like it almost feels like he doesn't want to be there at times, and he
Mhm.
just is going to go with whatever is presented to him first or whatever. I'm like, oh yeah, well, that sounds great or whatever. Let's do that. And I think that's why WWE has been the way it has been here these past few months. I think the injuries with a lot of people has a lot to do with that too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But I think, that's happened before when Vince was in charge, and they've worked around that to make things work.
Hmm.
But it just seems like maybe where it's kind of been happening sporadically here recently with so many people that they're just doing whatever they can.
Right.
But at the same time, it feels like, they have time that they could put more into it.
Hmm.
But I don't know. But I think you're 100%, right on the nose with that. I think he's just kind of burnt out, and um,
His
you,
better booking days might be behind him with the
yeah,
NXT stuff, the black and gold era. He was hitting on all cylinders at that point. He could do no wrong in the fans' eyes, and everybody preferred his product to what they were doing on Raw and SmackDown and the pay per views at the time.
hmm
And I just, there's nothing anywhere near as compelling as the TV that he was doing at that time.
hmm
I mean, look at what he did with Tommaso Ciampa and the DIY feud.
hmm
That was amazing. Turning those two guys against each other, all the shit with KO. I mean, dude, I still love Undisputed Era. We probably won't ever get them to come back together again,
uh,
unfortunately, but I could go back and at least watch that stuff, and it was
yeah,
great. I could
and just
only think about what could have been had they come up to the main roster and Triple H was running everything at that time.
yeah,
Like,
and you look at guys like Balor and Nakamura, their runs in NXT, just that
yes,
that that whole era, like there was it was at a point when they were doing all of that where I enjoyed watching NXT more than the main roster stuff. And when it was announced that Triple H was taking over from Vince, and because they're pushing Vince out, I thought, oh, this is going to be the greatest era in wrestling in years.
that's what I
But
thought too. Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like with certain things that have happened in the past year, and I think it really started with Jey Uso. Unfortunately, I hate to throw Jey Uso under the bus, but it feels like that's where it really kind of started to fall apart for Triple H. Do you agree?
I think there was a little bit of a writing on the wall kind of thing, like slightly before that, but that was probably the catalyst that kicked everything into the fans sort of turning against them on all sides. At
Mhm.
least Triple H. I mean, it. I can only think that here's a guy who eats, sleeps, and breathes the business. I mean, he's been in the business for so long at this
Yeah.
point, has studied the production and writing even and everything in between. So he knows how to make the show work, but it's like, why is it not clicking now? And part of it, I know people talk about declining sales and stuff for ticket prices, but I think a lot of it has to do with the creative is just not where it was like a year or 2 years ago, even really. There's something off. And I mentioned this on the last stream on Friday Night Lives that I think some of those old timers that are there, just a couple like Pritchard, um,
Michael
Michael
Hayes.
Hayes, yeah, I don't really get why they're still there. It's not like they were contributing, at least from what I know of their jobs, that they were contributing that much when Vince was around. So why are they there now? And are they contributing more than they should? Are they giving bad ideas? Is he being steered in the wrong direction, or is it all him? Like it's kind of hard to tell, you know what I mean? Just because they have such a big creative team.
And I'm glad you mentioned Michael Hayes because, and I know you've not seen any of WWE Unreal, but in the second season, like there's a focus on Chelsea Green, and
Hmm.
and like there's a whole thing that's been floating around online since that, or of a comment that Michael Hayes made in the show about saying that she was never going to be Chelsea was never going to be a Charlotte Flair or a Tiffany Stratton. Um, and a lot of
See?
and Chelsea says went on social media and addressed it and everything and acted like it really hurt her and all that stuff, and she didn't know he was going to say that. But I don't know. I have this sneaking suspicion that it's like WWE is trying to create a new version of kayfabe, and
Hmm.
I feel like that this whole thing in the show between Michael Hayes and Chelsea is a work, and that's still going to be their what they're going to use because fans are savvy to all that. They pay attention to what goes on those shows and what goes on social media and everything. And if that's the case, I think that would be pretty genius, like to do it that way, in order to get Chelsea over. Because since that comment was made on the show, more and more people are cheering Chelsea and getting behind her on the shows, even though she's injured right now. She's coming out there sitting like in a boot, but she's still getting cheers and people are like her merch is selling like crazy. Her all of her meet and greets sell out. It's so if I don't know if that's what they're doing, but if that is what they're doing, I think that's a good way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I hate to be right, or I mean, maybe it is a new kayfabe, like you're saying. Maybe I hope that that's best case scenario, but like, if it's not, then that's just affirming what I kind of had in my head already about guys like Hayes being there still. It's like, I know you've had a historic career in a sense, and you contributed quite a few things to the business, but like, do you really think that like somebody like that, like how could you look at her and say she's not going to be this or she's not going to be that? You're automatically putting like a limitation on expectation from other people around you that might even look up to you because you're Michael Hayes of like, hey, let's not worry about Chelsea. Let's just go over here. Let's book this person this way and have them go over. Like it just, I hate handcuffing people to mediocrity when it comes to character development, which is what I was talking about earlier. Lack of not necessarily a push, but just freely utilizing them for all the potential that they might even have. Just trying to sort of bury that because you don't think that they're going to go this way or that way. You never know what anyone can become, which is why you should give everybody a chance if they possess any sort of in-ring talent or even talent on the mic. That's what you got the performance center for. You work with people. If you don't think she's going to get to the level of Charlotte Flair, okay, that's your opinion. But hell, why don't you work with her and try to get her to that level, at least in your mind? Like, wouldn't that be the way to go? I can't stand that.
Ideally, yeah.
Way Vince. That's how Vince used to seemingly run the company. It was like, well, I don't see much potential in this person, and we're not necessarily going to work with you. Maybe we'll come back to you, but we probably won't. And it's like, you're in need of talent. You're in need of the next star. Like, let's push this person. Let's do something with that person. Let's try new things. But I'll still say we're in a better place than the Vince era, I think.
Oh, yeah.
There's still potential so much for good things to happen. I hope it goes that way. But I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't say I missed the Triple H booking of the old days of NXT. Yeah. Hell, I love the FCW stuff. When there was like 10, 15 people in the seats. It wasn't much people there, but I love seeing Bray come out, doing his thing and developing that character from the ground up. That's another guy I miss sorely. Loved all his stuff. I never missed any of his matches, never missed his promos. I watched everything the guy did. And look at how that character evolved. Like, you know what I mean? Like, without the opinion of a Michael Hayes, he may not be the next Undertaker. You don't know. Let these people work, man. Let them evolve.
And it's funny you mentioned that because I was just watching some of Bray's stuff here recently, and like even that when he was like doing the tag team stuff with Matt Hardy, I really enjoyed it. I was a big fan of Bray, and it just makes me wonder. I think about this a lot actually, like what WWE would be like if Bray was still around. Like, how different would it be than what it is right now? Because he was another, like I say, Paul Heyman is the greatest mind in wrestling history. But I think that Bray Wyatt had such an amazing mind for what he could do with storytelling and we seen that during the time when he was the Fiend, and especially like the stuff that was pre-COVID that he was doing. It was so different, and just so like the way they presented it was just extremely like entertaining. And I think it was the thing with Undertaker when I think it was like the Raw anniversary show or whatever. He like says something to him in the ring.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
before he leaves. I mean, I think that was kind of the passing of the torch at the time, and it just really sucks, that Bray's not here anymore, and we won't ever get to see. I mean, I know they're trying to do this thing with the White Six, and like, it's just. I mean, it was cool at first when they first introduced them, but
Yeah.
now at this point, they've been in like it feels like a year-long feud with MFT, and I'm done with it, dude. Like I don't care anymore.
Yeah, it's very weird to see them ever come out because it's like no matter what they do, it just seems like for some reason they're in kind of like a limbo position and they're never going to break free of that. No matter if they win tag titles or maybe, God forbid, Bo win the WWE championship. But I mean, it's not the same. It doesn't click the same way the Wyatt family did. It just shows also too like how great Bray was because you can't recreate that. You can't duplicate the same magic that he had. God, man, I wish they worked. I really do. Like
Yeah,
I
me
would
too.
love to have it, be a good thing and actually be relevant and be relevant, but it's not working.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just by them continuing that feud with MFT and Solo Sikoa and all those guys, like it's not only making the White Six look less appealing, but it's making Solo's group look less appealing too.
Right? Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know, dude. But before I move on, I just want to mention one other thing with the whole Chelsea thing. Like, I'm definitely with you as far as like with comes to Michael Hayes. If that is the case, if they're just like making comments and making these decisions on talent and holding them back, I think it's bullshit. But I don't know, man. I just if it wasn't a work, why would they keep carrying this out? Like in the public because after that was all said and everything, Chelsea said not long ago that Michael Hayes apologized to her for that,
Okay.
but then he goes on to Undertaker's podcast and Undertaker mentions it to him and he says, "I don't regret anything I said."
I did see that clip. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's what that was in reference to. I do remember seeing that.
So, like, what the fuck? If it's not a word, then are you just that giant piece of shit, and then you don't care to let people know it? So, I don't know, man. I think there's something to this.
Yeah.
But
I just hate being right. I really didn't want that to be the case, but I forgot about that clip. He did say that. Jesus. Well,
but I do got one last question for you,
Mhm.
Mark, and I ask this to everybody. So, when it comes to your favorites of all time, not necessarily who you think is the greatest of all time, but just your 4 personal favorites of all time, who's on that Mount Rushmore for you?
Oh man, there would be so many honorable mentions. Um,
It's tough, I know. I mean, I
that's
mine is always changing, to be honest with you. I mean, what's it matter? I mean,
yeah. I mean, they've asked me this before Friday Night Lives, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to change it again right now. So Austin definitely is on there. Bret Hart,
yeah.
HBK, fourth person. Mm, I'm thinking more like total package wrestlers. This guy was never the absolute best on the mic, but God, nobody could duplicate his in ring, and that'd be Kurt Angle. Just the
So,
matches he had, like, man.
so are those your 4 like personal favorites of all time, or just people you think deserve to be on there?
I'd say personal favorites. I mean, because if it wasn't limited to 4, you could probably guess the other 6 just based off those. I mean, the next would probably be Eddie Guerrero. I mean,
Yeah.
fucking legend. I gotta ask this. I know you're asking me the question, but I gotta flip it on you because I've always been a huge fan of this guy. His reputation, unfortunately, after the Chris Benoit. I mean, moving past what happened outside of the
Yeah.
ring, what what's your feelings? Do you ever watch any of his stuff
I
still?
do. It's funny you mentioned this, and I won't mention any names or anything, but like, um, I had a friend. There was a guy that I was friends with for like 15 years, and we were friends because we were both wrestling fans and stuff. And somehow in that 15 years, Chris Benoit never came up until like the end of our friendship because like I was talking to him about it and I said, Well, the thing is, like, I look at it differently from a lot of people. I know it's controversial and everything, but like, I enjoyed Benoit as a wrestler.
Me too.
Now, what he did outside, I mean, I think it goes without saying that's an awful, terrible thing that, I no way condone in any shape or form. But, it's one of those things like with Hogan too. I know that's a bad comparison because Hogan didn't kill anybody or anything, but like, a lot of people have turned on Hogan, right, years before he passed away because of just, things and he said in his real life and just he's very political and all that. But like see, I try to separate those things when it comes to wrestling because wrestling, these guys on there, they're not really the real selves. They're these characters, everything is it's just like a story on TV. Like, I mean, there's a lot of actors that have done shitty things in real life, but we as fans of movies still enjoy movies that they are a part of.
Hmm.
So I don't look at wrestling any differently from that. So I try to separate what happened with the whole Benoit stuff from his wrestling career. So I still watch it. I still think he's one of the best technical wrestlers there ever was.
Yes, I agree.
Um, Kurt Angle will tell you the same thing. Kurt Angle said that the best matches he ever had was with Benoit.
Hmm.
Jericho has been, an advocate for Benoit's career for years now. Um, and I just hate it when fans and just people in general turn on each other because of just somebody they liked watching wrestle on TV. I feel like, that's no reason to turn on one another or break friendships or anything. I think that's ridiculous because, in the end, it's meaningless.
Right.
Um, so what's it matter if I like to watch Chris Benoit? I don't agree with what happened in real life, but I mean I'll die on that hill, man. I love watching his wrestling.
Me too. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the way the guys that I mentioned wrestled is like my envisioning of like how perfect in ring wrestling should be. Like everything's really tight, really close. Like
Mhm.
everything makes sense. It looks good. Like it's a big part of what I was saying earlier with showing somebody wrestling, and they could just get into it maybe just off a match and say, "Wow, like that's I've never seen that," or like that's really interesting, or
Yeah.
like that's what I love about it is that you could, and I mean, and it connects people. Like, look at how we're talking now about wrestling. I could talk for another hour about it.
Yeah, man. I mean,
Like
it's
it's
something I could do. It's like I'm that passionate about it. I know
me
that
too.
you are too, and just
Yeah.
so many of my friends are that that love wrestling. They're always super passionate about it, and I love to see that. To me, like that makes for excellent conversation. At any
Mhm.
time. Because there's so much that you can cover. I mean, like you could talk for days and days, and still there'll be a shit ton of to talk about when it comes to wrestling.
Yeah.
You could I mean, it's just that's why it's always been I've been so drawn to it over the years. And just going back to Benoit, and I'll take this a step further, but like if I were doing a Mount Rushmore of the top 4 in-ring guys of all time, I put him on there 100%.
Hmm.
Um, as far
Yeah,
as like
he'd be my top 10 for sure.
yeah, but and I have no shame in that, man. I'm glad that you don't either, like, cause I just think it's foolish to like to look at things that way. But again, that's just how some people are. You can't change them in that aspect, and I understand that. But I just think it's just it's senseless to hate people over because you have those perceptions on things. But
Mhm.
but yeah, man, but I think your Mount Rushmore, like you mentioned, Stone Cold, and you mentioned Bret Hart and Kurt Angle, and who was the fourth you said?
HBK.
HBK. I mean, I think that's perfect, man. I mean, they definitely deserve to be on a Mount Rushmore of people's favorite. I mean, Bret Hart's in my Mount Rushmore. Like Sting is on there for sure because he's my favorite of all time.
Okay.
Bret Hart, Dusty Rhodes, and Roddy Piper. And it's been like I said, it changes all the time. Depends on if like you know a year from now, if you ask me again, I might get on a big Terry Funk kick and say Terry Funk is in my top four,
Yeah.
because I love Terry Funk. I love Mick Foley. I love a ton of these guys, but like, there's always just that select few
Mm.
that really will always stand out more than others. Um,
Okay.
but Mark, man, I really appreciate you again for taking time to do this. Is there anything else that you wanted to add or say, or maybe talk about something you got coming up on your channel or with Dead Pit or anything?
Um, we'll be doing Friday Night Lives this Friday. I don't think we have a topic or anything picked out just yet. Oh, actually, no, we do because it's Friday the 13th. I forgot.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
probably a commentary of some sort. I know they're going to have Adam Marcus and Slippy on for the 14th, which is Saturday night, so the night after. But for the 13th, I think it'll be a commentary. We haven't picked the movie yet, but probably Jason Goes to Hell because they're going to have them on the
Right,
next day.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
um, yeah, everyone watching also, be sure to follow Mark's channel, and follow the Dead Pit channel as well, because we do stuff over there with WrestleManiacs, and he does the Friday Night Lives with Uncle Bill and Rambo. I have the Mark's Instagram and his YouTube, those links in the description of this video. So if you want to go and follow those, you can do that after this video. But sir, it's been a pleasure. I would love to do this again at some point.
Hell yes.
I know we'll probably be doing like some WrestleManiac stuff soon
Yeah.
if Wes can get on the ball with that. But 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 man, like I said, it's been a pleasure. And on behalf of both myself and Mark, I want to thank everyone for watching the show. Um, and just I've got several other fun shows coming up, including this week I have Pizzal. I'm going to be interviewing
Nice.
on Thursday, and then my old buddy Dave Cottle. You might know him from the Dead Pit message boards from back in the day. Is Dave Mania.
Dave Mania? Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. That's
When I
cool.
have on Saturday, I'm going to be doing that with him, and then I just got some other ones coming up in the next few weeks as well. Just stay tuned to the channel, and if you haven't already, be sure to like, subscribe, and click that effing bell, brother, right here on the CraterMania channel, and we will see you next time on How I Got Into Wrestling.